Okay, let me ask you a question, Conrad. You've done an incredible job of promoting. Those videos are incredible.
Oh,
Just
thanks.
simple storytelling, incredible. Whose idea was this to do Ric Flair's last match and put this show together? How did this even start and take us to how we got here? But I wanted to tell you, me and Glenn saw your video yesterday, and we were like, well, first of all, that's the great thing about, and I think Flair might have said it. He said, I don't need writers. We just use bookers. And right, when you got Jeff and you got Karen and you got Lethal and you got Croc and you got Flair, you don't need to write shit down. You just fucking, you have a bullet point and you do it. And you guys did an incredible job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot coming from you, dude. I really appreciate that. We had an idea to do another StarCast, and it was simply based on, I looked and I saw that WWE was not running Nashville on Friday night. Normally, when they have a big pay-per-view like this, they do SmackDown in that town. They used to do the NXT pay-per-view, then the actual real pay-per-view, and then Raw all in the same town. Well, for Nashville, I saw, wait a minute, the show's on Saturday, not Sunday, and they're in Atlanta on Friday. So Nashville's 2 hours from my house, less than that. Jeff lives in Nashville, knows everyone. So as soon as I knew the schedule, I said, hey, Jeff, what venues do you know of? And he goes, have you seen the new fairgrounds? And I said, oh, no, I don't want to do that. He goes, no, it's not my old building that I used to run TNA in. This is a whole new. So I went and looked at it, and I was like, wow, okay, this is not what I was expecting. And
compare it to something. I don't know. What is the building like? Compare it.
Well, there's 3 expo centers. So one of the expo centers, it's like, a metal wall and concrete slab and, but it's brand new.
Size-wise, how many people does it hold?
2,500 in the big room.
Right.
So I thought, okay, well, I could run wrestling in here. I know I could run wrestling in there because NXT looked at it pre-pandemic, and since then, Impact ran it and NWA's ran it. And so, all right, well, we could do that in there, and there's a room in the middle, Expo 2, and I thought, okay, we could do our meet and greets in here. Then I could put my stage in the other spot. So the large building, I think, is 46,000 square feet. Meet and greets is like 25,000 square feet, and where the stage is like 38,000 square feet. So it was plenty of parking, like 7,000 parking spots. And I'm like, okay, this will do. So we started whittling and working on numbers and all that. And the only panel I ever wanted to deliver that I couldn't deliver was the roast of Ric Flair. But Rick got hospitalized in 2019, couldn't make it to Vegas. So I really wanted to do that. So I pitched him. He was down. I pitched him on doing a Horseman reunion because I didn't think we could get all those guys on the same stage, but somehow I did. And okay, here we go. I realized it was the 30-year anniversary of SummerSlam 92. That should be easy. I knew we were launching Kevin Nash's new podcast and Foley's. Okay, here's a launch pad for that. And then some other stuff just fell in our lap, like Paige and Claudio and Bryan Danielson and all that stuff. So I knew I had the panels rounded out. But Konnan, as I looked around, I was like, dude, what's everybody doing Sunday? And some friends of ours, I won't say their name, they're going to run a show soon. And I said, guys, y'all shouldn't run your show there. They hadn't announced it yet. You should run your show here. Like, you're going to have 70,000 fans, or we thought at the time, 70,000 fans here for SummerSlam. Just siphon off that and run a Sunday show. They thought about it for 2 days and called me and said they didn't want to. And I was like, this is too good of an opportunity to pass up. So I called David Crockett, who I got to know really well because last year we covered 1986 JCP week by week with Tony on his podcast. So we had David pop in like once a quarter. Well, he and I hit it off. We did a couple of events together, and whenever I was in Charlotte for my family up there, we would hang out and just carry on. And I knew he had a blast at the AEW shows, and he got the bug in a big way. So I said, hey, man, what if we did like one more JCP? And before I could finish it, he goes, I'm in, when and where? So he was in. So then I called Rick, and it was sort of the same thing. And I've known Rick for 9 years, and every now and again he would say, man, what if? And pitch me a hypothetical about doing one more match. So he jumped at the chance, and then it was, all right, how do I finish out the rest of the card? Because I knew we would have a lot of, pushback about who wants to see another Ric Flair match, or he's too old, or I hate Rick, or whatever the naysayers are going to say. But I thought, man, if we load up the rest of the card and make it feel like all in, a Southern version, this could be really cool. And I started to reach out to different folks, and Scott D'Amore was cool, and Court Bauer was cool, and AAA was cool, and New Japan was cool. And I'm like, shit, I think we got something. And we were off to the races. But what I didn't want to do, Konnan, is just announce matches. And matches really work when you've got, these Marvel superhero characters like we've got in our AAA match. But in an old school Ric Flair match, like if we just announce any opponent cold, unless it's Sting or Shawn Michaels, it doesn't make sense. But if we could tell a story, it could work. So I really liked the way HBO and Showtime did like a 24/7 or an all access where they give you like 3 weeks in a row where they're building towards a big fight and create a big fight feel. And that's where Floyd Mayweather became Money Mayweather in 2007 against Oscar De La Hoya. Without that series on HBO, Floyd Mayweather never makes the money he makes. I mean, he was just a mid-card guy who was main eventing boxing shows, but nobody gave a shit. But that television series on HBO made him a heel character. And I was like, okay, I got to tell a story. Let's just do that. So I started reaching out, and I pitched an idea to a friend of ours that I probably shouldn't say their name, and he loved that idea. He helped me fill in the pieces, and what we put together, I'm pretty proud of. So episode 1 was sort of showing the motivation of why is Rick doing this. And episode 2, man, we just did some old school wrestling storyline, and episode 3 is this Monday, and then it's time for our go home, right? We're doing the show.
I can't wait for the Monday. I got to be devil's advocate too here because well, let's address some of the things that the critics might be saying.
Sure.
Like, and you hear like, Rick's health.
The
guy's got a pacemaker. He's 73 years old, but I saw the video, like, how long has he been training for this? Like, he's obviously under supervised training. Like, yes. I saw he's got training. So explain that.
He started training in March. I first pitched the idea in March. He's been training since then.
Right. So he's in good shape.
Before he agreed, he wanted to do 2 things. He wanted to, 1, talk to his doctor, see if he could get permission, if you will.
Right.
And number 2, he wanted to get in the ring and take some bumps and just see how does it feel. Because Rick had a mental block about, I want to make sure I can still do this. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do it in front of a crowd for the first time. I need to make sure I can really do this.
It's been 10 years, right, since his last TNA match?
11, I believe.
11.
So he went and did it, and he called me and was excited, and I talked to Jay not too long after, and I said, hey, man, what'd you think? And he goes, Conrad, he press slammed me. And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, he locked his elbows out. He press slammed me. And I was like, I don't know what to say. He goes, I didn't know what to say. I'm just looking down like, is this real? He's 73. How did he do it?
Well, I've seen the videos of him on Twitter deadlifting 500 pounds or something. So, like, the guy's got, bro, he used to be a power lifter.
Yeah.
So you never really lose that natural strength, that even as an old man.
Let me tell you, Conrad, remember when he showed up in AAA with Andrade?
Yeah.
So originally, I wanted him just to go in there and chop me, right? So I asked Andrade, would you ask Flair if he would do it? And he said yes. And I said, all right, simple enough. Then I said, fuck it. Maybe he'll do the figure 4, right? So I went into the dressing room and I go, would you do the figure 4, Andrade to Omega and you to me? And he was like, yeah. And bro, he was in a suit. I'll never forget this. He was in this fucking orange suit. He was doing Hindu squats. He was pulling like a rope with Andrade and actually pulling Andrade, who's a big, strong, young motherfucker, And I was like, Jesus Christ, I bet you anything, if I would ask Rick to wrestle, he'd probably say yes.
Yeah.
He was in way better shape than I expected.
Yeah.
So don't. Yeah.
That's the Ric Flair routine. If you've ever been at the go position with Rick going out for his match, and he's getting ready to go out, and like I'm standing there, I'll be like, hey, come over here, and you grab him. He'll do the pull, he'll pull your arms, everything. He'll do the Hindu squats, and he'll just go out. That was like his warm up, the pull and the Hindu squats. Like that's it. And everything, and still go out there and take the press slam off the top rope and take the. But the one thing Ric Flair, like I tell people that the two best experiences I've ever had in professional wrestling is being, wrestling Eddie Guerrero multiple times. I would say Eddie Guerrero is the best professional wrestler I've ever been in the ring with. Okay, but the Ric Flair wrestling experience was the most. I just can't describe it. I've never been in a ring with a guy where he's literally pulling you through the match, and like you're not like. You're just like, like when you go to these car washes and you put your put your car in neutral and you just go through, you just being perfectly led through the match. And I've never experienced that with anybody but Ric Flair. He's like, it's like a genius. Like the way he positions you and him and the way he talks to you and stuff. It was just an unbelievable, like Ric Flair and Eddie Guerrero, just like, the the two best performers I've been in the ring with, and it's like, people that wrestled him know what I'm talking about. The way he just worked, like you don't have to provide any type of like effort. He does it all for you. It's very weird, but he's an incredible athlete like that. So
there's a famous story when he wrestled Kerry that maybe Kerry was under the influence and that Rick put himself in an abdominal stretch. And
right,
if you knew what you were looking for, you could see it. And I love that analogy you just said, though, about the car wash. You put it in neutral, and it does the rest.
Right, it does the rest. It's like wrestling Ric Flair, Yeah. And you look good, and you come out looking like $1 million.
Right.
like the best way to put it. You're all clean and everything else. Yeah. That's
and
crazy.
it's like when you think of wrestling, he is wrestling.
Yeah.
When you think of everything that he's put in there, I mean, nobody's put so many mouths, and he is wrestling, and it's almost feels like a love letter to Ric Flair, like, thank you. You know what I'm saying? I really like what you've done. Very classy, Conrad.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. We got some really smart folks working really hard on it. And, it did feel at some point like, it's like, man, I feel like I'm pushing uphill here. But I knew when episode 2 hit, it would work. And as you guys saw, like the internet just kind of exploded and responded to it. So it's everywhere now. So it went super viral when we first announced months ago. And then this week we've enjoyed a lot of success and recognition, and I'm glad we're doing it in the home stretch here.
You put together a really interesting card with obviously talent from every promotion. Really, what kind of hurdles did you encounter? Having guys from AEW, WWE, Impact, MLW. Was there any problems?
No, I mean, listen, we had a lot of ideas that we had to eventually, the trouble is you've got one show and you've got a finite amount of time, and you want to do everything. And you want to have everyone on it. And so there were some ideas that we just couldn't get approved just based on, contracts and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But as far as the actual promotions, AAA was a breeze, New Japan was a breeze, MLW was a breeze, Impact was a breeze. Like Court Bauer and Scott D'Amore were just fantastic. And Konnan knows, he helped me put together the AAA stuff. Couldn't have been easier. I think the card is a lot of first-time evers and some dream matches and some legacy stuff, and there's something for everybody. I heard an analogy from Dusty Rhodes once where he said a great wrestling show is supposed to be like the circus or the buffet. Like there's something for everybody, and I think we've got that. If you're looking for second and third generation guys, we got that. You want first-time ever matchups and interpromotional stuff, we got that. You want the lady stuff, we got it. You want lucha, we got it. So I'm pretty proud of it.
Bunkhouse brawl too.
I want to talk about this. Kind of controversial a little bit, but it's like Rick has had a complicated. This best way to describe life. Like everything, like stuff. Just like you can positives, negatives. We can harp on anything. And I think what happened was like after the Dark Side of the Ring thing, it was like because of the groundswell of social media and the mobs, it seems like everybody was on Ric Flair, and it's like we grew up like people like my age grew up watching Ric Flair, and like he was like one of our motivations to get into professional wrestling, and you didn't really want to see his career kind of like him go off into the sunset like that, with negative energy and stuff and all that, and like I see this. Like Ric Flair's last match, it's really changed the tone of like, hey, regardless of all the problems this guy's had in his career, it's like we kind of need to celebrate Ric Flair's career, and like this is a way to do it. You know what I'm saying? It's like because you know how it is these days, bro. The social media, even a lot of these journalists are kind of trolls. It's just very negative, and they just want to try and like find the worst in people and stuff. But like. This is kind of like a celebration, and it's like even like I mean, bro, Rick's had problems with friends of ours, him and Madden had a falling out thing, and like and like to this day, Madden's kind of upset about that he doesn't even watch wrestling anymore. It hurt him, but like that's Ric Flair. He's had complicated relationships with a lot of people in his life, but it's like if you want to look at the career of Ric Flair, how does it go out? It's like. I don't want to remember it going out as like the Dark Side of the Ring episode. This is like more of a way to do it. I think it's good. I think it's good for wrestling. The tone of the business. What do you think?
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And, I do want to say this. Social media is not representative of real life. Right. So while Ric Flair may have been canceled on social media, he was still commanding the highest price in the autograph circuit. He's got a 7-figure deal for autographs where he does this a handful of times a year, and they give him 7 figures. And he doesn't have to do that. He could just live full time and retire forever on his Cameo. And he's still in Car Shield commercials and shooting. So while there may have this, sometimes we in the wrestling community get so focused on what social media say, we forget, hey, the real world exists out there.
Exactly. I'm the same way.
And so the mainstream really gravitated to this. Like, I'll never forget, we announced Ric Flair's last match on a Monday. On Thursday, I went for Swoggle to Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And when I walk in the bar that Swoggle goes to, the bartender recognized me from Dark Side of the Ring. And he did not listen to my podcast, had no frame of reference for podcasts, but just kept on and on and on. And then he asked, hey, man, I like your accent. Where are you from? And I said, Huntsville, Alabama. And he goes, that's not too far from Tennessee, right? And I said, right. We're like an hour, maybe 30 minutes from the Tennessee state line. And he said, just like this, man, are you going to Ric Flair's last match on July 31st in Nashville? He said it word for word like that. And Swoggle looked at me and goes, you motherfucker. We announced it 3 days before. But this is an old school fan who wanted to see Ric Flair's last match. And he knew the name of the show, the date, and the town. And it had been announced for 3 days. And he's kind of a lapsed fan. He doesn't watch Raw or SmackDown or whatever. So I knew we had something. But I appreciate what you're saying, that it is important to recognize there's a difference between Richard Fliehr and Ric Flair. And I always equate that to like Tony Soprano and James Gandolfini, 2 totally different guys. And I'm able to, and this was a recent conversation with Chris Benoit, and I don't want to get into that necessarily, but I'm able to enjoy Ric Flair's entertainment that I saw on TV and not necessarily villainize the stuff they did. I still listen to Michael Jackson songs when they're on the radio. I'll bop my head, and we know what we know. And I mean, I'm not saying that I love what he did, but damn, that's a pretty good beat on that song. I mean, I'm able to separate it a little bit, and I know that not everybody can do that, and I understand that. But I know the Richard Fliehr that a lot of people don't know. The folks that are coming and bringing presents for Christmas and I mean, I know Grandpa Rick, I know Dad Rick, the way he handles his kids, and I know Joe Gomez and Dino and his friends, and I know real life Rick, and not everybody sees that. They see some negative stuff and say, well, that must be all he is. But bro, here's a heads up. Nobody's all good and nobody's all bad. And that's everybody on this call and everybody who hears this. So if we take one little bad thing from anybody, we could fucking run with it. But that's not reality. So
I used to spend 40 days. I used to spend about 40 nights a year at Joe Gomez's house in Florida. But when we would do the Disney tapings, I would stay at his house in Brandon for like 10 days. So
the mayor.
Yeah, the mayor. Oh, yeah. He went, and he absolutely
Great
was
guy.
the mayor of Ybor City. Yeah.
Great guy.
Yes.
I want to ask you one more thing here. Bro, Jeff's got his fingers in a lot of stuff right now, especially that weekend. It's like he's back in WWE.
Yep.
Like he's got an executive position there. He's refereeing the one of the main events at SummerSlam, the tag match, and then he's doing the Ric Flair match. So I guess it's like this was just what's Ric's relationship with WWE? Was this just a thing with like, okay, everybody, we're just gonna do this, cooperate. We're not gonna forbidden door, whatever you want to call it. But like you get a lot of cooperation from the WWE from this, huh?
Well, I wouldn't say a lot, but we kind of had all this plan in motion when Jeff went back. So I had a conversation with people that I needed to have a conversation.
Before he went back, or after he went? Like, did you talk about this before he went back?
Well, I'm giving it all away here, but yeah, I had it lined up.
We know the dates. But when this airs, the other thing, stuff will air. But so before he went back, huh?
So we knew that that's something we wanted to do. So as soon as I heard that it happened, I made some phone calls and we got it approved. And I don't imagine that it's something that would have happened under any other circumstance. I'm in a good spot where I've been Switzerland and I've been helpful to a lot of people, and they would say, okay, we'll allow it, but just this one time. And so now, even though we're probably not supposed to talk about it that way, that's how it happened.
Well, but this show, we know what it's like. We can appreciate the production of the build of this match, but it's like, we're not going to, we're not like Marks here. So it's like,
I don't think everybody wants us to harp on the fact of who all's in the ring and how that happened and how it got there. And
afterwards, we'll worry about that.
And everybody's willing to sort of be helpful because it's Rick. Like if I was trying to do this for anybody else, I don't know that it would have happened that way. But, the combination of me having some good relationships and Rick being Rick. I mean, in the middle of all this, WWE starts saying they want to do a documentary on him. So you've seen some clips and they actually posted about it. Tom Rinaldi's doing the narration and interviewing for a big documentary that WWE's putting together. And then they put him back in the open. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that's all coincidental. Like they wanted to get back in the Ric Flair business and people can have.
Let me ask you a question, Conrad, now that I have you here and we don't have you here that much. You've been watching AEW since its inception, correct?
Yes, sir.
Tell me what you think they're getting right and tell me what you think they're not doing so right.
I still enjoy the show, and I watch wrestling from a different perspective than a lot of wrestling fans. But I do that in my life. I don't focus on the negative. I focus on what I like. I watch very little stuff live.
But what would you like to, like you say, they could do better here, or maybe this is something they should emphasize more, or you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just saying, what do you? Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times the matches are really dream matches, and they're all fantastic matches. But I feel like I wish there was a little more story. And I feel like in WWE, there was a little less story and a little more wrestling. I don't think they have the perfect mix just yet. But because we had so much story from WWE for so long that when AEW first came out, it was a real breath of fresh air. But the idea that sometimes that AEW show starts, and man, there's two motherfuckers in the ring and they're starting right now. That beats the shit out of a 20-minute promo that we heard the same thing last week and the week before. And so I just feel like AEW feels more gritty and less paint by numbers. Like it annoys me. It's a little thing, but I hate on WWE when once a guy gets thrown to the outside, here comes a commercial. That's just too predictable for me. And I don't feel that that's the same in AEW. And
or a dive. That. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because you had a conversation with Eric that we played on this podcast and discussed, and it was an interesting one. When you were discussing, and Eric was talking about, because me and Konnan kind of like have a similar take on this, because we used to work in WCW and stuff, is that Eric trusts the structure of the WWE storytelling better than he does the AEW storytelling. Remember that conversation you had?
Yeah, I do.
This is what me and Konnan would agree. Maybe you agree. This is where I think Eric is right, and where AEW needs to improve. Bro, whether the storylines are good or bad, the way they tell the stories in WWE, it's like they present a lot of packages. Like if you're a viewer and you're tuning in, maybe you missed last week and everything, but like you turn the TV on, there's a good 2 to 3 minute package of a major angle explaining everything in detail up to the point, okay, now we're going live and you know what's going on here.
Can I give you an example?
Go ahead.
Because I just saw this. Not too long ago, we saw Christian turn on Jungle Boy and cut a big promo. And I did not see that one. I was traveling or out of town or whatever, but all my friends told me about it. And now the next week, I made sure I caught, let's see what happens with the fallout or the follow-up. And they did not show a recap of him turning on Jungle Boy.
Right.
And I could not believe that they didn't show it, because in my head, I don't have to go watch last week. They'll show me when he's on his way to the ring, or he'll throw to the video screen, or we'll see it, but it didn't happen. And I think almost WWE does it too often. Well, sometimes they'll say earlier tonight, and I get that. But sometimes they'll play a replay of something that happened right before the break. And that's maybe too much. But I do think AEW doesn't do that enough. But I understand why Tony does it. It's probably not just Tony's call. There's other people involved. They have so many wrestlers that they're trying to feature. I don't mean for this to sound derogatory, but I get why it might sound that way. It's 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag, as we say in the South. You've got too much you're trying to cram in. So as a result, we can't let anything breathe. And so when he's out there doing his promo about here's why I did what I did to Jungle Boy, we didn't see what he did to Jungle Boy. You had to watch last week. And I feel like sometimes if you miss Being the Elite, or you miss Rampage, or you miss Dynamite, bro, you're behind. You got to consume it all to keep it connected. And as a casual fan, I could see how that would get confusing. That never happens in WWE, because they hit you over the head with the replays, maybe too.
Right, I'm going to tell you where they're the most guilty of this, Conrad. With the Japanese girls that you've never heard of them in your life, they just show up. You're supposed to know who they are. and they don't get over, and that's like, it's almost like, imagine if you were to watch UFC and they didn't tell you who the fighters were before the match. Those little minute things that they do, like on the fighters, and they'll each talk about each other, and you have a little bit of a connection before the match, and you know who the fuck they are. That drives me up a wall.
I think that this is philosophically, I think the error I think they make is that they assume it's like, okay, if you're going to watch our show, if you want to know what's going on, here are all these other shows you can watch, like YouTube clips and stuff. And like, wait a second, like you can't, you know what I'm saying?
That's what you have commentators for, and that's what you have B-rolls for.
They write the show to their base, to their fans.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you want to draw new fans, you kind of have to explain more stuff, that may be repetitive to your fans. But, it's good to explain to people that are trying to get invested in it. Because perfect example, they opened up a show with Jericho versus Santana in a hair versus hair match. They made the angle the week before, and they didn't recap the angle. It's like, we have a hair versus hair match. Open up the show. And I'm like, all right, if you why are these guys having a hair versus hair match? You need kind of, say that's. I think the fact that because they're more in ring and their fans like the in ring, and they promote good wrestling and stuff, everything that I think you kind of agree. Sometimes when a match is 13 minutes, maybe 9 or 10 would have worked, and the other 3 to 4 minutes could have been invested into some character development or some, a package or something to explain why these guys are wrestling each other. And I think that's the difference. That's why I said the original conversation you had with Eric, I think that's where Eric is talking about where WWE's structure in their storytelling is just more comprehensive than it is in AEW. And that's, but that's where they're different, I think,
I would think that, what you just described to me is a production thing more so than creative. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't think recapping necessarily falls into creative. I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you, but I just think creatively, what WWE has been cranking out hasn't gotten me very excited in a while. So it's hard for me to say that that's better. But from a production standpoint, yeah, I don't think anybody does it better than WWE. But right. To Eric's point, he also says it's sometimes too clean. It's too sanitized. And It almost feels at times like Disney on Ice. He doesn't mean that in a bad way. He just means like everything has its place. Whereas sometimes AEW feels a little bit like ECW in that it is a little more gritty. It's not as produced, if that's the right word.
Right.
Exactly.
So let me ask you, Conrad, for those that don't know the whole card, and can you announce, some of the matches that you're going to have in Nashville, what platforms they can be purchased on, all that?
Absolutely. We got the Von Erichs, Marshall and Ross, Kevin Von Erich's kids. They're going to be taking on the Briscoes, who a lot of people think are the best tag team in the world. Ren Narita and Clark Connors, who you've seen recently on AEW, will be there for New Japan. We got Killer Cross and Scarlett Bordeaux in his corner in a rematch with Davey Boy Smith Jr. They've only wrestled one time.
I saw that. That was incredible.
It was in Bloodsport, so there was no ropes, and this is going to be a traditional wrestling match. So Killer's looking to even the score there. Oh, the Von Erichs and Briscoes, first time ever, never met before. A three-way dance for the Impact title with Deanna, Mrs. Grace, and Mrs. Ellering. A first time ever with Josh Alexander and Jacob Fatu. Alexander's the Impact champ, and the belt's on the line. Jacob Fatu is the longest reigning MLW champion ever, and they've never squared off. Thanks to Konnan's help, we've got 4 of the 5 folks from the last Triple Mania that Meltzer said was the match of the year candidate with Ray Phoenix, Taurus, Laredo Kid, and Bandito. They're going to fucking steal the show, and everybody knows it. A dream match that everybody wanted to see, and only a handful saw it because it's only happened one time at an indie show 11 years ago. The American Wolves versus the Motor City Machine Guns.
That's going to be great.
Something for the old school, man. We got representing the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton and his son Kerry with Robert Gibson in their corner against Brian Pillman Jr. and Brock Anderson with Arn Anderson in their corner. And earlier this week, we announced the Bunkhouse Battle Royal. And here's the trophy, a bronze boot. I just got it back from the bronzery.
That's great.
We'll start announcing some folks, but Bully Ray's already been announced. And tonight during Dynamite, we're announcing our very last match. There'll be a total of 11 matches, including the pre-show, 55-minute pre-show, and we're scheduled for 3 hours for the pay-per-view, but we bought a little extra time because who's going to tell Rick to go home early? If he wants to go a little longer, it's up to him.
Hey, you got to do
Plus,
this.
you know he's going to do some sort of a speech.
This is 2022. How many guys got booked in the Bunkhouse Battle Royal?
How many will we wind up with? I mean, the original goal was we wanted to have 20. I don't know that we'll have.
Tell these guys, whoever they are, okay, say, look, go back and watch. One of the things about the Bunkhouse Battle Royal is the visual that these guys are showing up for a street fight.
Yeah,
Come at
right?
you,
So they don't wear your trunks and put some jeans on, get some boots, tape your fists up, but and like that's part of the visual, because that's the thing. So they have street fights these days in professional wrestling, and the guys come out dressed in their gear.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, it's like, I'm old school, you need to have your fists taped and everything, for, a wife beater on, and so like, yeah.
Yeah, the knee pads over the jeans.
Yeah.
Right,
That's great.
Right, yeah, I love that. Oh, man.
So,
Cool, man.
well, Conrad, all I can say is you always do everything with class, organized, very well done. This is no exception, whether it's StarCast, whether it's your podcast, whether it's just anything that you do. It's always a pleasure to have you, giving guys work in this business and coming up with things that are outside of the box. I wish you nothing but continued success, my friend.
Hey, Rand, I really appreciate it. I encourage everybody, if you haven't already, go check out episode 1 and episode 2 of Ric Flair's Last Match, the docuseries. Episode 3 comes out this coming Monday. They're totally free. It's RicFlairsLastMatch.com. The pre-show will be everywhere, and you can enjoy that for free. And then the pay-per-view is going to be on Fight. It's going to be on satellite. It's going to be on cable. But if you get it on Fight, you've got it on demand forever and ever in HD. It's going to be awesome. And by the way, Konnan, as you know, I think you know, we got your boy Hugo and Carlos doing Spanish commentary. So it won't just be in English. We're going to have a hell of a show in Spanish as well.
Yeah, they're the best at what they do. And like I said, man, continued success. I'm so happy for you. And hopefully we will be talking again on Keeping It 100. Boom.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, man.
All right, peace, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Conrad.
Thank you, guys. See y'all.
All right.
All right.
Have a
Thank
good
you
night.
for your time. Yo, what up? This is Konnan, and I host Keeping It 100 with my co-host, Disco Inferno, unfortunately.
Well, I'd say you're my co-host.
Listen, every Thursday here on Spreaker, we talk pro wrestling, sports, movies, music, TV, pop culture, and some politics. It's everything the rest of the pro wrestling podcasts are not.
Tune in to hear myself, the superior one, educate and inform.
Tune in to hear me bury Disco.
That's very disrespectful.
Join us every Thursday on Spreaker and keep it 100. Boom!